Friends, so some of you are well aware that we are in the midst of exploring that famous prayer of Jesus's, right? The Lord's Prayer, some of us call it the Abba prayer, others of us say, or the Jesus prayer, we might call it. I see there are some new faces in here, so I have to do a little bit of a rewind, a little bit of a recap, and it's not bad, right? Sometimes I'll watch a series on Netflix or something like that, or in other streaming. Netflix is not paying me to highlight them, okay? Sometimes I'll be watching a series, right? And when a new season comes out, they give you a recap because sometimes we forget, right? I forget things, so I like seeing what happened before. So what happened before, and where are we now? Where are we picking up today? Well, we start with the Our Father in heaven, right? Reminding you that that is a shortened version of our Mother, our Father, that indeed means our householder. Our householder, the one who sees to and makes sure that each and every member of the household of the entirety of the world has enough, has an equitable share, and that those who are vulnerable, those who are hurting, get the attention, the extra care and concern that they need. So, our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Those three pieces being a parallel that builds and builds and builds on each other and explores and expands on that householder piece, on that equity portion, that equity character, passion of who God is. For God's name to be made holy and sacred, for God's realm, God's kingdom, God's ruling style to come, for God's will that desires justice for each and for all of us. That's what we've explored up to this point. The God part, but it's never just the God part, right? It's about us being invited, as Paul reminds us, that we are heirs of the divine. So we receive from God both the privileges of the householder and the responsibilities. So we are to take care of one another. We are to be a part of keeping God's name holy, of making God's realm, God's kingdom, God's ruling style come, and doing God's will here and now, as in heaven, as in eternity, as where everything is right and beautiful and just, bringing that to earth. And we're shifting, right? We're transitioning now, because we've had this section that was encapsulated by heaven and heaven. Our Father in heaven, as in heaven, so on earth. So we are focusing in now more on earth. And we get three pieces, right? Three more pieces, three more parallels coming up here. And what do we have today? Well, I know we haven't prayed the prayer yet, so you might have to remind yourself, but the text Keith read for us might spur some of those thoughts. What are we focusing on today? But bread. What are we going to be eating in just a few moments? But bread. Daily bread, give us today. So when Jesus is inviting us, when Jesus is teaching his earliest followers to pray for daily bread to be given to them, what is that about? What indeed are they praying for? What does it mean when we pray that? That is what we are going to explore and unpack a little bit today. And the text that Keith read for us, I think, helps us do that a little bit. As I mentioned with the children, again and again and again, Jesus is shown eating with people. He had a reputation for eating with people, right? He was a glutton and a drunkard, some people liked to say. He liked to have community meals. He preached about community meals. He told parables about community meals. And here today, we get what some of us might understand as a parable, as people longing for teaching, came to Jesus, followed him, and his disciples, his closest students and companions, followed them when they sought to go to a deserted place, sought to have a little bit of time away, a little bit of respite, because they had been out in the communities, connecting with people, sharing with people the good news of God. They just wanted a break, but the people needed to be fed. And Jesus had compassion on them, right? And he taught them. And then the time was growing late, and they needed to be fed in a different way. So, what do the disciples say? Hey, Jesus, everybody's hungry. Send them away. They're hungry. They need to go get some food for themselves. That's what the disciples thought was the best solution. But where did Jesus go? What did Jesus say? Well, what do we got here? What resources do you have? Check and see. He's inviting them to shift their thinking, to see what is already there among them. And they take the bread and they take the fish. Fish was a big deal in Jesus' time. I know probably, maybe even half of you do not like fish. Fish is something that some people really detest and do not want to eat or smell at all, right? But fish was a huge deal in Jesus' time, because that was one of the ways the people were able to support themselves, with the Sea of Galilee right there. But what was happening with that lake, with that sea at this time? Well, Herod Antipas, you've heard of Herod the Great, the so-called great, right? Well, one of his successors, who didn't have as much land to control as he did, but Herod Antipas was in charge of that area, according to the Romans, and he was seeking to be named King of the Jews at this time. He wanted to get in good with Rome. So just like he had subdued the land, he was working on the lake as well, to commercialize that lake and transform it into the Sea of Tiberias. That all of the goings-on, all of the fishing industry could help him to raise money, to do things that Rome would then be happy about, to perhaps then give him some more prestige, some more power. This was a very real issue. So we talk about bread, yes, from the grains grown in the lands, and it's about fish. What is in the lake? So we have the bread and the fish here in our story today. And they gather up 5 loaves, 2 fish. And Jesus blesses that. We talked earlier, remember, earlier in this prayer about making God's name holy, right? Hallowed be thy name. What does it mean to be holy? To be sacred. That means to give something to God, right? But whose bread is this already? Whose fish are these already? Whose land is it? Whose lake is it? Whose earth is it? Who does it belong to? Who is in control of it? And who gets to distribute it? Is it Rome Is it those who are collaborating with Rome, Herod Antipas? Those who are collaborating with Rome, Herod Antipas? Or is it God's? Jesus shows us here that this bread, this fish, this lake, this land is God's. And when it passes through the hands of God's divine justice, what happens? Jesus directs the disciples to go and give it to the people, right? Again, they are being invited to participate in distributing this food that belongs to God, that is enough when it goes through God's justice. And they give it out to the people. Instead of sending them away, they are making sure there is enough there. And all have enough to eat. In their communities, in their blocks of 50s and 100s. And there's an abundance. There's more than enough. Everyone eats their fill. Jesus, in this moment and in our prayer, is declaring that this land and that this earth and this lake, all of this belongs to God. And clearly, just like we learned at the beginning of Genesis, there is enough for each and for all. So this prayer about daily bread is in trusting that reality. Trusting that indeed there is enough. And perhaps we're reminded of another story. You don't have to go all the way back to Genesis. But let's come a little farther on the timeline and stop at Exodus. Y'all remember that Moses was journeying with the people, right? As they were being liberated from oppression and exploitation. And the people were grumbling and they were complaining. They didn't have anything to eat. Their bellies were full. And then there's that story of manna, right? Manna from heaven. Each day, each and every day, manna, bread from God would rain from heaven so that there would be enough. And people were supposed to gather enough. The householders of each group were to gather enough for their household. And they were only to gather what was necessary. And some people did take extra. They did take more because they thought, maybe I can hoard this. Maybe I will need more. Operating out of a mindset of scarcity, maybe there won't be enough. Maybe it won't come again tomorrow. But what happened to that? It rotted. And worms came in it. No matter how much they took, everyone had the same amount. Everyone had what they needed, and no hoarding was allowed. To pray that we might get daily bread today is not just about today, but it's the trust and assurance that we will get that bread, we will have that food today and tomorrow, and every day that follows. But what I love about our text that Keith read for us this morning is it reminds us that we don't have to wait for bread to rain from heaven. There is enough here already. And we are called, we are invited, we are challenged like the disciples in this text to distribute that food, to ensure a just distribution. of God's food. You know, one of the ways John Dominic Crossan put it in his book, The Greatest Prayer, that we've been exploring over these weeks, is that it's never just about food. It's about just food. So where are we today? Does this still speak? Do we still need to pray this prayer today? Well, if you take a look at food insecurity in the United States, you will see that indeed we need this, because 47.4 million people in this country, 13.5%, are food insecure. And you might be thinking, well, but what about Indiana? Indiana is one of those breadbasket states, right? We should have enough. We should be feeding people enough. We should make sure that there's equitable distribution because we have so much food, so much farmland here in this state. Well, our rate of food insecurity is even higher. At 14%, 1 in 5 people in Indiana, almost 1 million people in this state are food insecure. Sorry, that's one in 7 are food insecure. Yeah, sorry, my math was off. It's because I was thinking of the children, because it impacts the kids even more. 1 in 5 children are food insecure. And the overall rate is even higher for Monroe County, friends. We're up at 18%, and those numbers are a couple of years old, from 2021. I can only imagine with what is happening today, that those numbers are going up, especially as SNAP is being threatened. Friends, this congregation knows how important food is. Not just through pizza and play, not only through coffee hour, not only through our potlucks, right? But through the collection of food that we are inviting people to gather food, especially on those first Sundays of the month, which is today. But we'll take the food anytime, right? Because pathways, families need that food throughout the month. We take food seriously. That's why we provide a home for the Area 10 Agency on Aging food pantry. They put out 155, actually double that, because 155 people get at least 2 bags of food every month. And that is fed, that is more secure because there's one place, one location where volunteers can come, where the Pack the Bus event can happen. Friends, we are feeding people in our community. Our understanding, our support, our awareness that people need to eat comes through us offering space in the building, but also land for the People's Cooperative Market to share food and to grow food. Local, nutrient-dense food here in this greenhouse. Friends, this is what this piece of this prayer is about. That's some of what it's inviting us to be cognizant of, to be thinking about, and to be acting on. Jesus didn't go to each and every person and serve them their food, right? Jesus asked for the disciples, his followers, his students, to participate in that vision. That God provides enough for us. God's earth, God's lake provides enough for each and every one to have enough. So you, followers, disciples, students of Jesus, are invited and are challenged to be a part of that just distribution. What will that look like for you today? What will that look like for you in the week ahead, in the months ahead? What will that look like for us as First United? Yes, continuing what we're already doing, but is there something else? Is God inviting us into something else? I'm going to let you ponder that question for yourself and for our community, as we pray together that we may receive our daily bread, we may be given communally that bread each and every day, that a just distribution of God's abundant gifts might be shared throughout our community, throughout our state, throughout our nation, throughout our world. Friends, let us be together now for a moment of consideration, of meditation, of prayer. Let us be together now for a moment of pause.